Hello YouTube, Gaming Goddess here with another review. Today's game is Dark Cloud, an RPG dungeon crawler that allows you to build your world. So to start this review off, there's one thing that I have to point out. That would be the in-game tutorials. Now, it wasn't so much of an issue in the last two games that I reviewed, but here, I'm trying to play the game, and this Fairy King guy shows up and explains the objective of the game, which I'm fine with. But he also tells you how to play the game multiple times as you go through the first dungeon. And on top of that, he gives you a manual which also tells you how to play the game. Honestly, I would have been just fine with the manual. I'm the type of gamer who likes to figure things out on my own. I don't need a tutorial on how to play a game. Well, since I mentioned it previously, I might as well talk about it. The main objective of this game is to go through these randomly generated dungeons, fighting monsters and collecting items to rebuild your village. So the items that you use to rebuild your village are in these egg-looking things called atlas. Now, I'll get into that a little later, but right now let's focus on the dungeon. You pretty much need to explore every part of the floor that you are on before you can advance any further in the dungeon. Why? Because there is a random monster that is holding the key, and you have to kill it, and then he'll drop it, and then you can progress. And this was so annoying, I couldn't even tell you how many times I died in the first dungeon alone. So aside from keys, there are also tons of other items that you can find. Monsters will sometimes drop, or they're in treasure boxes. Sometimes there will be a part of the dungeon that is blocked, and you'll need a specific key for it. These keys can also be found in treasure chests. Now, the way the battle system works, it's actually pretty easy. You walk up to the monster and you attack them. But there is a downside to this. You die pretty easily. Well, I think you do. And your weapon can break, and that's not good. Now, you are given items that can cure you and to fix your weapon, but you can also find these items. There is also a kind of time-based battle system. It is triggered in both inside and outside of the dungeons. I like this system better because you have to press the buttons that show up on the screen. If you time it correctly, you win, obviously. Now, I said earlier that your weapon can break. Well, instead of the player leveling up, you level up your weapon. This can also cause it to break if you go past its limit. When you upgrade a weapon, you can add different attributes to it, which generally gives you more attack, speed, endurance, or magic. You can also add things like fire, wind, thunder, etc. Moving on, there are up to 6 playable characters. Well, you can only play them in the dungeon. Each of these characters you can name or stick with the name already given. Me, I just rename them. You can change characters depending on the obstacle given to you in a dungeon, or there are some parts of a dungeon where the game automatically picks for you which character you can be. Now, an aspect that I did like was the real-time weather and day and night system. It's pretty cool when your game can go from night to day in a matter of minutes. Just remember to pause it, or you'll end up on day 50 pretty fast. So this kid Toem was chosen by the Fairy King to rebuild the world that the Dark Genie destroyed. This is probably the only part of the game that I actually enjoyed. After you collect the pieces of your village in the Atla, which are found in dungeons, you can build. You can more or less place things how you want it, but if you ask the people in the village, they'll tell you how they want you to build it. There are some items that you know where they belong, but sometimes you'll be left with the question mark. You will have to ask the person or people of that house, how do you want me to rebuild the house? They'll tell you, and once you complete a house, an event will be unlocked. Here you can receive items. So let's finish this up with some final thoughts. Honestly, I didn't even finish the game. The gameplay was too tedious for me to even consider this an RPG. There really wasn't much of any character development going on. Dungeons seemed way too long and dragged out for my taste, and on top of that, I kept dying, not to mention that I had a really hard time with the battle system. Now, from what I did play, there was a story, and honestly, it was quite interesting, but it wasn't interesting enough for me to even consider finishing it. I do give it props for the graphics. They're a lot smoother than I thought it would have been. So all in all, I give this game a 5 out of 10. This has been a Gaming Goddess review, and remember to keep on gaming.